Dad hates my house and apparently expects me to take in my brother's children at some point? I don't know if this is the right sub for this. But in this moment, as the only blood-related woman on my father's side of the family, it feels gendered. Maybe I'm wrong. A few days ago my dad came over to my house for the first time in quite a while. I've had a lot of renovations done since he last saw the place when we first moved in. I have a nervous system condition which, while very fortunate to be able to manage it in such a way that it usually doesn't impact my life most days out of any given month, can render certain simple tasks very difficult for me when I'm having a flare. It's also important as part of managing my condition and maintaining my high level of function to limit certain activities which can bring about a crash or a flare. My husband is also disabled. He has hypermobile EDS, so together we made a list of things we'd love to have as accommodations in the home we share, and we either DIY'd those things or found contractors to do them for us. I'm really happy with the results. I find that these accommodating renovations make my life a lot easier, I have fewer crashes, and overall more energy. My husband is elated with how much more functional he can be after we made these changes. My father isn't a fan. He thinks it all makes the house too weird. He's worried about the resale value, not that we're planning to sell anytime soon. He had a lot of comments when he came over, in fact it was almost all he talked about. I kept trying to gently tell him that this is just what works for us and then divert the subject, but he was getting a bit worked up, which isn't really like him in those types of situations. The plan for his visit was he'd come over, meet my foster dog that he might adopt, and take the dogs for a walk, then get lunch. When I left him alone for a minute to go use the bathroom after we'd walked the dogs, I came back out and found that he'd attempted to pull one of our accommodating mechanisms out of the kitchen wall. He hadn't caused any functional damage, but he did cause aesthetic damage in that it will now need to be repainted over. I was shocked and kind of hysterical in my reaction, and I raised my voice at him when I saw what he was doing. I think I yelled, "What the fuck are you doing, Dad? What's your problem?" And he responded, "I just wanted to see if it was removable. Sorry. It's just too weird. It's too weird, it's just not going to work when Billy and Bobby move in with you." Billy and Bobby are my nephews. My brother's kids. I have never invited them to stay with me, let alone move in for any amount of time, and I've never been asked to do so. Even in the event that my brother and sister-in-law passed away in some tragic manner, to my knowledge I should be very far down a very long list of people who could be asked to take those kids in before I would be asked. So, I was pretty shocked my dad would say something like that out of the blue, and with so much frustrated emotion, about Billy and Bobby moving in, because there's no reason to my knowledge for anyone to think that would possibly be happening. I asked him to clarify repeatedly, but he just waved it off and told me to forget he said anything and he didn't want to talk about it. I pressed him and all he said was, "Well, honey, it's a massive house. You have room for 2 boys. When I asked him why he would even bring it up though, and clarified that not only did I have absolutely no desire to host my nephews for a visit let alone to move them in, he clammed up again and just said, "Forget I ever said anything." He apologized for damaging my home, immediately transferred a larger sum than necessary to me via Zelle to fix the scratch he'd made, and then took me out to lunch as we planned prior. The rest of the day with him was pretty normal, and I guess I was just a little shocked or something because I didn't bring it up again. But now that it's been a few days I can't get it out of my head and I'm so annoyed. First of all, my dad hasn't ever been and would never be that aggressive about any decoration or renovation in my brother's homes. He just wouldn't. And I can't help but feel that he is less respectful of my home because I'm a woman. Which sucks. But more upsetting/confusing, what the fuck was he talking about in terms of my nephews? Like, is my family conspiring in some way to move those kids in with me? It wouldn't be the first time that my family assumed I'd take care of those kids without asking me first, but in the past it was just babysitting, and I have directly told everyone that even that is unacceptable, so I would be really shocked if my brother/Sil thought that was acceptable. I guess I'm just spinning out and don't really know what to do about it. I'm stuck between asking my father about it again first or just reaching out to my brother directly. Edit to answer. Is there something wrong with my brother that he can't raise his own kids? No, nothing wrong. To my knowledge, my brother isn't looking to move his kids out of his own home either. They are sometimes difficult kids. A little delayed and a lot entitled/enabled. In the past they've leaned heavily on family for childcare since my brother has a demanding job and my Sil has a hard time being alone with her kids. When I lived with my dad I was a big part of that equation and ended up being more responsible for those kids than I'd have agreed to, because I wasn't in control of telling them if they could bring the kids over as it was my father's house. But even when I still lived with my dad I was able to establish some boundaries and assert that I wouldn't agree to care for them on demand, and that was generally respected after I put my foot down a few times.
Relevant comments. Commenter, I'd definitely try to get more info from your dad, but failing that it wouldn't be bad to talk to your brother? It seems like a really out-of-pocket thing to say unless he has some serious information you don't.
OOP, it's incredibly out of pocket. Not only do I not want those kids to live with me, but I also would assume that my brother wouldn't want his kids to live with me. There are a million reasons why, but chiefly it wouldn't be a good idea safety-wise for those kids. I've been dealing with a stalker for years who has already threatened me that she would harm my nephews, at which point I distanced myself from Billy and Bobby, stopped picking them up from school etc., and the threats directed at them stopped. Currently I'm working on taking legal action, but nothing is set in stone, and even the idea of those kids, who are difficult but who I also love very much, being in my home makes me worried that they would be directly targeted or that there would be some escalation. I actually can't imagine that my family would think it's a good idea to move those kids in with me. Like, I can't imagine circumstances where that would seem appropriate.
Commenter 2, yeah, particularly given that information, but even without it, it's hard to imagine your brother or Sil would want or expect you to take in their kids short of some kind of serious health or relationship emergency. And even then, that wouldn't be something for your dad to be concerned about unless he's a particularly worrying person.
OOP, even if there's an emergency, I simply cannot be the first person on their list to take those kids in. I'm the only younger female blood relative, I guess, but there are so many other relatives and family friends who need to come before me on that list. My brother and Sil have a massive village, so I'm talking dozens. It's baffling to me that it would come down to me to take those kids in under any circumstances.
Commenter 3. The fact that he was actively trying to tear your house apart is a huge red flag. My bet is your brother is getting a divorce and they were just going to dump then on you since his job is so demanding.
OOP, honestly, I feel like a fucking idiot that the two of them getting divorced hadn't even crossed my mind. Not that they have an actively bad marriage or anything, but I think their dynamic is weird and I guess I wouldn't be shocked. Thank you for this insight. I mean, either way it's a no from me for various reasons.
Commenter 4, how old is your dad? Could he be having a sort of mental episode that he thinks your nephews are supposed to move in with you? Barring that, I'd ask your brother, hey, do you have any idea why dad would say this? Is something going on?
OOP. He's in his 70s but he's still sharp enough to be working. I asked my other brother, nebulously without mentioning the reason why, who works with my dad every day, if he'd noticed any decline, and he said dad seems sharp as ever in their work environment. It's pretty mentally demanding work, so I think it would be evident there. I'll also note though, my dad rejected an OCD diagnosis when he was in therapy after my parents' divorce. So he's not without any history of mental illness, not sure if that would cause this behavior though. Update. I talked to my brother on the phone about the situation and he expressed that he had absolutely no idea why our father would imply that Billy and Bobby would need to move in with me at any point. He seemed genuinely surprised and to have no clue what the hell dad was talking about. He claims to have absolutely never expressed anything like that to our dad. I believe him. I asked him if there was any possible reason at all that dad would think that I'd need to take in my nephews. Like, is there some problem dad thinks he is pre-solving without consulting either of us? Is there an illness or impending divorce or anything I don't know about? My brother assured me that there's nothing like that going on and that, as I assumed, I, of course, wouldn't even be near the top of the list of permanent caregivers even if something was going on, because he knows I run 2 businesses out of my house and also just am not up for taking his kids in unless I am the absolute last safe resort. Both of us are in agreement, as is our other oldest brother, that dad generally doesn't seem to have any other signs that we've noticed of declining cognitive function, like at all. But since this was such a strange outburst, we're still concerned that this is just the earliest sign. My brother Billy and Bobby's dad is going to talk to our dad about it ASAP and see what he says or what explanation he can give, then we'll go from there. The issue that we're both aware of is that my dad, while a loving father and good man to many, is a bit of a liar and a lot of a manipulator. He has a lot of signs of OCD and gets fixated on things, then tries to manipulate to get his way with his fixation. He means well, but he has been known to be full of shit and to have his own strange agendas that don't have much to do with anyone else's wants or needs. So unfortunately my brother and my brother has volunteered to go first LOL, are going to have to confront him by essentially saying, Dad, it's really important that you're honest about whether you are confused or intentionally lying/triangulating/manipulating, because that's the difference between us freaking out about your health versus us just understanding that sometimes you lie to push your agenda but your brain is fine. Thank you to everyone who gave me feedback here. You've all been so sweet and supportive, except that one guy who for some reason was dead convinced that I didn't pay for my own home and commented several times and med me about it. I did pay for my home, and it's solely in my name, you weirdo. I'll keep y'all updated on what my brother and I figure out going forward. Edit. People ask several questions about the stalker mentioned in one of the comments. It's okay. She's someone I used to be friends with, and honestly it's my bad because I hung in there even when I realized she was becoming mentally unstable. She became fixated on my husband when he and I began dating, and I became the enemy in her eyes. On if Dad takes the stalking seriously. No, he does actually take her seriously. This woman has stalked him too and done property damage to his house.